Hi, so this isn't my normal intro because I actually messed up my intro. I was editing it and I accidentally corrupted the file, so this is what I've got. And also, I left my mic at school. I went home for personal reasons, so the quality is going to be bad for this part right now. So let me explain the video. This is a draw with me video. So if you guys want to grab a piece of paper, a pencil, whatever you need, just iPad, whatever, napkin, crayon for all I care, and you'll draw along with me. I'm following a tutorial in this video by Natalia Madej. I'm sorry if I pronounced her name wrong. I'll leave the link to it in the description so you can follow it yourself. So what we're going to be doing is following this tutorial together, sketching together, and if you guys want to send me your final results, you can DM it to me on Instagram. Links to that will be down below too. I'm sorry for the terrible intro. There's nothing I can really do. Enjoy the video. Alright, so for this drawing, I will be using a HB pencil. I use light blue as my guideline, and this is an 11 by 14 canvas size. I hold a pencil very weirdly, so please do not judge me for that. Another thing is I will be skipping around a little bit in this video, so if you guys want to follow along yourself and not based on the video that I'm showing, please feel free to go grab a laptop, whatever you use, put the video on, and then follow along with that tutorial. Let's start.
The technique of drawing bodies is mostly based on dividing the body into geometrical shapes and then building the whole body drawing on that construction. And the first thing I'm always doing,
right, so first you're starting off with the head, or circle,
is I'm lightly sketching the shapes for the head, torso, hips and legs. And with this very light outline, I can write.
Okay, so she's drawing very light here, so maybe in my video you guys will be able to see it a little better because I'm drawing a lot darker than she is, because I can always lighten the opacity later. First, so she's drawing just a basic oval for the head, and then for the upper torso, she's drawn a trapezoid. So I think something along that lines. Then for the midsection, she's drawn two straight lines down. Lower stomach area, she's drawn another trapezoid, it looks like. Again, I'll have to probably fix areas later. Expands on the hips a little bit, squares it off at the bottom.
The way see if the proportions I drew are good before I go in with any harsher outline.
A straight line, diagonal line, like that. And then I can't really see the bottom there, so I'm just going to cut it off. And it seems like her character's a little bit thinner than I've made mine, so I'm just going to take the lasso tool and shrink that a little bit using freeform. Again, if you have a piece of pencil and a paper, you can't really do that, so sorry, it just, erase.
So for the head, I'm just drawing an oval shape with two lines.
Okay, so now she's going back and strengthening these lines a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my layers, bring the opacity of this down, create a new layer, and then go over this with just the same color and kind of fill in more of the details she's talking about now.
Of symmetry, one going horizontally and one vertical.
Looks more like that, like an upside down teardrop slightly. And then she drew a vertical line in the center, and then a curved line that for where she will, my guess is, place the eyes.
Then for the torso, I'm always sketching this kind of trapeze shape that is broader on top. The two upper angles of my trapeze shape are going to loosely indicate the arms. Then,
so now she's taking the trapezoid and adding a few more dimensions to it, following these, but then adding kind of shoulders.
I'm marking the hip area, and I'm also sketching a trapeze-like shape, but this time the broader part of it will be at the bottom. Next, I'm loosely sketching those kind of block shapes for the legs.
Alright, so now the legs are a little bit more defined, so I'm going to follow that, and then they're very rounded at the bottom. That's most likely where the knees, or either that or the beginning of the knees will go, like right above. Because with my drawings, I tend to make short, messy lines, which isn't necessarily the best way to do it, but that's how I always start my sketch, and then I refine it later. So she drew two circles for the kneecaps, which is standard. I also think I actually need to bring the knees up as a whole. So let's lasso that and bring those up slightly.
And lastly, I'm sketching the arms. Their length should always be around the upper 1/3 of the thigh.
That's actually a really good suggestion, because something I've always had trouble with is lengths of arms. I always tend to make them a little bit too short. So it looks like the elbow point is right at the waist area, and then she said that the arm should end about 1/3 of the thigh. So if I split this up into 3 sections, 1, 2, 3, it should be about right here. I'm going to bring that just a little lower in case. Again, this is just basic anatomy. This isn't really a gesture or a pose. I'll probably make a video in the future about that.
What we want to do is to add some volume to our construction.
So now, once again, I'm going to take this, turn the opacity down. I'm actually going to change it into a little bit of a darker blue here. Not super dark. Let's see. Yeah, that'll work. Bring the opacity down just a tad bit more, create a new layer.
And here we need to be aware of the fact that human body doesn't have any straight and harsh lines or angles. Everything should be kind of rounded and flowy to give us that 3D effect that we're going for.
That's a really good suggestion, and I see myself included, but I feel like I've gotten a little bit better about that, is that she's completely right. The human body is very organic, and you will never see super straight lines. So even if you don't exactly know where, how the muscles work or where to put something, it's always good practice. Just if you want to make the shoulders, instead of having it straight out like this or even bent down like that, you want to just give it even just a slight bit curve, and that already looks better.
And at this point, if you're a beginner artist, you might want to use some reference pictures to see how exactly the human body is shaped, so you can sketch it out minding every little detail, like for example, how wide the shoulders should be in relation to the torso, where should the cleavage area be in relation to the neck, and so on and so forth.
And I've seen people online saying you shouldn't use a reference because that's cheat. 100% use a reference. I can tell you even professional animators use a reference. There's actually a video of an animator who animated the movie Tangled, doing one of the scenes from the song Mother Knows Best, and part of the video is him dancing around like Rapunzel does in that shot, so he can accurately understand how the human body works. 100% use a reference. If you don't have a good one, take a picture of yourself, use your own. I personally don't like to do that, but like it's a good practice.
I also feel like it's quite important to emphasize the fact that all of the bodies are different, and what I'm drawing and what I'm showing you today is my kind of most standard silhouette with the most neutral and basic proportions. You can always alternate your body sketch and its proportions by, for example, making the legs longer or shorter.
What she said again is really good advice. So I see a lot of artists start using just one body type, and that's what they do. They get really good at it, and then they're proud of that and just use it for every single drawing. All humans don't look the same. Like, you'll have people who are really skinny, or people who are more plus sized, or people who look very strong, or maybe have wider hips, exactly like she said. So as an artist, especially early on, once you start understanding anatomy, get into the habit of drawing characters that don't have the same body types.
Or drawing the hips wider. But this requires the knowledge of the proportions and basics of anatomy to be able to freely design all of the body types you want. But anyway, in this step, I'm just following the construction lines, and I'm adding the volume to each part of the body, minding its curves and all the joints.
So she's going a little fast, and so am I. I'm going to be skipping areas, so feel free to pause the video at any time, hers or mine. Like, this is a female or feminine body. If you're going to draw a male or more masculine body, obviously the chest would be a little more squared off, the hips wouldn't be as wide set, and the thighs would probably look slightly different. My personal biggest struggles as an artist are faces. hands, obviously, but I feel like that's very common, but also arms. I very much struggle with arms, so at some point, if I do decide to continue doing stuff like this, I might just do a video completely on arms.
And once I'm happy with what the sketch looks like and I checked if all the proportions are correct, I'm going to lightly erase the whole sketch with my kneaded erase.
So for you guys drawing at home with a piece of paper and pencil, 100% do what she says, but for you guys who are doing digital art, just turn off those other layers. I would never suggest delete them unless you're running out of space, because you might want to go back and fix stuff, or you can then kind of see each layer as it progresses. But for now, I'm just going to turn those off.
And then I'm gonna take my mechanical pencil and I'm gonna outline the whole drawing again to refine it one last time.
So now she's refining it again, so I'm going to create a new layer. I'm actually going to go for a purple this time. That's just a color that, like, the colors I choose. Bring the opacity down on this one slightly, maybe a little bit more than that, like that. And now, like she's doing, I'm going to go over it once more with some more details. I'm also going to be changing my pencil for this, for the syrup brush. That's the brush I personally like, because if you have an Apple pencil, you can start off thin, and just based off pressing it, it'll go thicker. What's nice about this is drawing normally and then drawing on the side looks different, which is pretty nice. It feels like an actual pencil. Sorry if my lighting changed at all or anything. I had to stop recording for a bit to do some laundry.
And I'm gonna take my mechanical pencil and I'm gonna outline the whole drawing again to refine it one last time.
So now I'm going to use the syrup brush, like I said. Let's go in and make some cleaner lines. Sometimes it can be really hard to make straight, clean lines. So there are programs like Autodesk Sketchbook that have a stabilizer to help you with that. I haven't found a perfect one for Procreate. I'm still decently new to the program. It just takes some practice, and that's something I'm working on personally, is cleaner, straighter, or cleaner, more accurate lines. The thing I see other artists do is beginner artists, or me, the inside of the arm, they'll draw like arms like this, or they'll draw arms like this. Either of these are right, because this one, like she kind of said, they're just straight lines and there's not really any straight lines that appear on the body. This one does have curves, but if you look at an arm isn't just like two circles. There's points where, especially in the forearm, it's a little bit bent towards there, but it gets narrow as it goes down into the wrist. Another thing I see a lot of artists do is use the symmetry tool, and while that can be helpful, especially when it comes to drawing two eyes, you have to be careful because, well, this is just an example of anatomy. Something I've learned recently is that humans, we do not stand perfectly straight. A lot of times we'll like lean one way, or like have our hands on our hips and kind of have the other shoulder poking out, stuff like that. So while the symmetry tool is good, sometimes you don't want to use it all the time, because a human body is never perfect on the same side. You probably already know this stuff, but it's also just a reminder for myself, maybe a refresher, and then there's probably some people watching this video who don't know this stuff. So sorry if it's a bit repetitive or you guys already know this. I will say one thing that I do disagree with her about is how intuitive some stuff is, because a lot of young and beginner artists aren't, like, as someone who's drawn a lot, yeah, it's intuitive to me even if I can't get it right all the time, but a lot of younger artists don't see how the body is split up into shapes. So sometimes a tutorial for that stuff is good, and I actually think Jazz's tutorial, which I'll leave up here, a really good example of that, because this one's kind of talking about just the overall shape, while his goes more into detail about the construction shapes.
And now, before we're gonna move on to a little bit more complicated poses, I'm gonna break down the shapes of each body part that we just drew to make it even easier and more understandable for you. So once we start with more advanced poses, you'll know how to approach them.
She did say, I'm going to create a new layer here, bring the opacity down. She did say to break the body parts up into shapes, which is kind of what she mentioned before and what I talked about. So let's do that. So the shoulders are always circles. It's kind of easy to see too. Then the head, split the line here, and then here, and then one there to show the curve of the face. She also drew from that point on a line straight down. She drew a line slightly below the pelvis. Then she drew one connecting here and here up, and then from there created almost what looks like underwear. Looks like she split the section up from where it starts to curve in, right below the chest, one in the middle of that, then a curved line to show the chest, right below the lines of where the chest ends, one shoulder to the other, circles for the kneecaps, circles for the elbows, then lines going down both legs, which are not straight, and then lines for each arm. So like that. So I've been taught differently. There's a lot of lines. What I have been taught is more of a box method. So kind of what she actually explained in the first segment. 2 circles for the hips, then circles here, here. Obviously this is really rough. Circle here, and then these would also be circles eventually. There's 100% different ways to do it, and no one will show you the exact same way. Alright, sorry again for the jump cut because I didn't edit this properly, so now I'll explain what I'm doing. So this is what I just did, this is what I just showed you guys. I went and take this and kind of sketch out a piece. I didn't finish it, I didn't draw the hands because I did not have time. I got lazy and I'm in a bad mood. But joking aside, like I'm okay, I'm just tired. But so one thing I guess I've learned through all of this is that I shouldn't necessarily just follow a tutorial, especially every time I draw, but like when you see my final piece, there's still a lot of anatomy errors, and that's when the shapes kind of come into play. Instead of doing it like she did and drawing out the figure first and then adding the shapes last, you want to add the shapes first and then kind of base your anatomy on that. She did that a little, and I know that was more of a tutorial for very beginner artists, but it is important to understand the body and how those shapes work, and that tutorial wasn't for me. I still think it's a great tutorial, especially for young artists. It's just something that didn't work for me. That being said, I still did learn stuff from that tutorial, which I really appreciate. So, like I said, if you guys did follow along, please show me. I'd love to see you guys work. One thing I really want to work on this year with my channel is building a community. If I end up having the same amount of subscribers, I don't care, but I want that interaction. That's what I enjoy. I enjoy talking to you guys. I want to make sure you guys are actually liking the content I'm making, and I'm actually also liking the content I'm making. So with this piece, I ended up making the legs too short. I think the torso and the face didn't look half bad, but I totally gave up on the hands. So thank you guys so much for watching. Like, subscribe, blah blah blah, all that stuff that you could not care about, and I will see you next time.